How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and in this video, we're gonna talk about the next possibilities we could see Tropical Storm Danielle form in the northern Atlantics. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. So let's begin. Let's take a look at the European model at this time, and it's been quiet over the past, I'd say, week or so, where there's a lot of stability in the northern Atlantic at this time, which is suppressing tropical cyclone activity. And it's been pretty much a topic of discussion over the past several days. It's just been very quiet, and that's due in part to the positive MJO pattern we're currently experiencing throughout the northern Atlantic, which is creating an overall more stable environment. But could we see that change? Well, taking a look at the European model, the European model is expecting a couple of tropical waves to come off of the west coast of Africa. And while the European model isn't necessarily developing anything definitive yet, it's still at least something to keep in mind, because even going beyond the 5-day mark, we see a continuous stream of tropical waves come off the Africa coast, and we do see two well-defined low pressure systems come off of Africa. We do have this one disturbance that's located right around the main development region at 1,013 millibars, so still a high millibar pressure, not necessarily strong enough to be considered tropical storm status. And we have another low pressure system closer to South America. So both of these tropical disturbances or tropical waves are weak coming off the African coast, but who knows, we maybe could see conditions become conducive enough for tropical cyclone development sooner than we think. So it's definitely at least something to be aware of, that we're going to see a continuous stream of tropical waves, at least based on what the European model is stating. And when we're talking about that in the main development region, especially since we're approaching August, then it's always something to be aware of when it comes to the tropical Atlantic, because we don't want to see a lot of tropical waves come off of Africa right in the main development region, because there's a much higher probability then we will see a tropical cyclone develop out of one of these tropical waves that come off the coast. So we're going to need to pay close attention to this. However, there's several reasons why the European model currently isn't necessarily developing any of these low pressure zones. For one thing is that look at how much stable air there is to the north and to the west of this low pressure system, because since we do see a strong ridge and a strong pressure gradient between a low located right around the Saharan desert, as well as this ridge located closer to Europe, it's bringing a very strong northerly flow, which is bringing a lot of that cooler and more stable air further southward, to where it's inhibiting a lot of tropical waves from having much of any chance of developing in the main developed region, especially the first one, where we do see that this whole pressure system completely dries up in the main developed region in the midst of this very dry air. And you see that this next low pressure system, same thing happens. And while we do continue to see a stream of moisture move through beyond the first two low pressure systems, you still see the dry air is just so dominant throughout the northern Atlantic at this time. So it's definitely less likely we will see a tropical storm develop with conditions this stable at this point. But the fact that we're still seeing tropical waves, it's at least something to be aware of, despite the fact that as of right now, it's looking like the conditions are a little bit too dry. But of course, a lot could change, because look at the hour I'm going at, 240 hours, 10 days out. So a lot could change until then. And even when we're talking about something as early as 5 days out, a lot could change. Maybe there's a little bit less dry air than the European model initially anticipated. Who knows? We're just going to need to wait and see what factors play out over the next several days, because I'll play a big determinant in if we see Tropical Storm Danielle in the near future or not. At this point, it's unlikely we're going to see it within the next 5 days, and potentially even as far out as the next 10 days. But the fact that we're seeing tropical waves is still something we're going to need to be aware of. And in terms of the wind shear over the main developed region, at this point, the European model actually is expecting a light amount of wind shear, which also will inhibit it just a little bit. But you see that the wind shear won't even be the primary concern for these low pressure systems because we do see the wind shear is quite light. We do have a little bit of an upper level ridge just to the north of it, but since the upper level winds on the southern side of this ridge are moving the same direction as the surface winds, then the wind shear is a lot weaker in the main Deval region. So wind shear won't necessarily be the problem. Really, the problem when it comes to these low pressure systems trying to develop into a tropical storm will be the amount of dry air. So we're going to need to pay very close attention to that over the next several days in terms of what the GFS model is forecasting when it comes to the potential of tropical waves coming off of Africa. The GFS model still is a less lenient on track of developing anything, even a well-defined low pressure system. You see that there isn't really much of anything. We don't really see a well-defined low pressure center, and we see the moisture very scattered and not very heavy. So that really shows that there's a lot of stable. The GFS model is expecting a lot of stable air to dominate the main Deval region, which should be able to limit tropical cyclone development if the GFS forecast model is correct. But there's still a lot of uncertainty regarding that, and we're going to just need to wait and see how strong the northerly wind component will be to really determine how far south that dry air and how concentrated that dry air will be as it attempts to center into this thunderstorm activity, which still has yet to be seeing how strong the northerly wind component will be as it continues ahead further southward, as it continues ahead further westward, I meant to say. So definitely something to keep in mind. The GFS model, a little less lenient on developing a tropical storm, unlike the European model, but it's definitely, but both are at least taking enhanced amount of moisture to the main Deval region, so that should help. That could potentially help for a tropical cyclone to develop, but again, we just need to wait and see a lot of days to iron out the forecast, and I'll make sure to update you guys regarding any changes in the forecast. It seems like the low pressure systems are going south of the Cape Verde Islands, so sea surface temperatures won't be an issue either, since the sea surface temperatures south of the Cape Verde Islands are above 80 degrees, but the dry air again will be the main concern as these tropical waves continue to move westward. And in terms of what the Ensemble members are saying based on what the GFS model is stating at this time, we do see that the GFS model between now and 210 hours from now is developing a low pressure system, and some even strengthening it a little bit, especially further northward. But you definitely need to take that model with a grain of salt, because compared to the others, this low pressure system is overly strong. So more likely it'll be more in line with this, but maybe beyond the 5-day or a 7-day mark, we could see maybe more growth of this low pressure system depending on the conditions up ahead of it. So we're just gonna need to wait and see right around the main development region of the Atlantic over the next several days. And here's my forecast track of where Tropical Storm Danielle will form in the main development region if it does form. So I put down 3 low pressure systems in the main development region, because it is very well because we're going to see multiple tropical waves move into the main development region, and they all have a solidable chance of potentially developing into Tropical Storm Danielle. It's still low, the chance. I did say solidable. I shouldn't have said it like that confidently, but there's still a lot of uncertainty, so we're just going to need to wait and see how the dry air and the moisture will play out in the main developed region to really determine if Tropical Storm Danielle will form within the near future, potentially as early as next week. We're going to need to wait and see if the MJO pattern becomes negative, because that will create a more favorable environment for tropical cyclone development in the Atlantic. So we're going to need to wait on all those factors to really determine if Tropical Storm Danielle will develop in the main development region or not. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. At least be aware of this around the Caribbean, of the potential for tropical waves and heavy rain, whether this develops or not. I want to point that out for Tropical Storm Danielle, so make sure to keep that in mind around the Caribbean. But in general, we're going to need to pay close attention to these tropical waves as they head further westward. But yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. If you want to see more weather content, make sure to like if you like this video. And I hope you guys all have a great day.